Usually when we look at a rock like just a regular stone sitting on the ground, or maybe a chunk of quartz sitting on a coworker's desk,
Right.
we see the ultimate symbol of something static. I mean, it's unchanging, dead weight. It is, by definition, inanimate.
Yeah, we even use it as a baseline metaphor for things that don't move or think.
Yeah.
Like, dumb as a rock or
Right.
solid as a rock.
Exactly. But then you step into the world of molecular physics, and suddenly that solid rock is, well, it's anything but static. Down at the microscopic level, it's actually this buzzing, oscillating hive of activity. Like every single atom is in constant motion.
It's constantly moving.
Right. So welcome to today's deep dive. Today we are exploring a really fascinating intersection for you, looking at a stack of sources detailing crystal healing and vibrational frequencies.
It's a huge topic.
It really is. And our mission today is to impartially decode the mechanics behind this massively popular practice. We want to understand exactly how practitioners believe inanimate stones interact with human energy, looking purely at the claims and the science presented in these texts, without getting lost in the mystical jargon.
Yeah, and I think whether you're a hardened skeptic who views this entirely as a psychological placebo, or maybe a holistic practitioner yourself, or even just someone who is endlessly curious about why people swear by these practices, we're going to look at the how and the why behind the claims.
Because we really need to bridge that gap between hard physics and holistic wellness.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's unpack this, because before we can even begin to understand how a crystal might theoretically heal someone, we first have to establish what a vibration actually is.
Right. The basics.
Yeah, we have to start with the foundational physics, because the sources we have, they lean heavily on mathematical concepts to validate their holistic claims.
They really do.
Yeah.
And at its core, vibrational frequency is just the number of times an object or a particle oscillates per unit of time. And this is typically measured in hertz.
Okay, Hertz.
Yeah. So if a crystal's molecular structure vibrates, say, 440 times per second, its frequency is 440 hertz. And the texts point out that this concept applies to absolutely everything.
Like literally everything around us.
Literally everything. The chair you're sitting on, the molecules in the air, the cells in your own body, they all have a very specific vibrational signature.
Wow. Okay, so the sources bring up a fundamental chemistry equation to explain how this works at the microscopic level. And it's delta E equals H nu.
The Planck-Einstein relation, yeah.
Right. Now, I'm looking at this stack of papers and thinking, okay, delta E equals H nu is a massive flashback to a college chemistry exam I tried very hard to forget.
I think we all did.
Yeah. So I need a translation here. What does this actually mean for, the literal rock sitting on the table?
Well, the equation is actually quite elegant when you break it down into practical terms. So delta E represents the change in energy, specifically the energy absorbed or emitted by a molecule.
Okay.
When a molecule absorbs energy from its surrounding environment like, say, heat or light, it excites its internal vibrational modes. And then the nu symbol at the end of the equation, that stands for the frequency of that vibration.
Oh, okay. And what about the H in the middle? Like, what is that doing there?
That is Planck's constant. It's a really fundamental number in quantum mechanics. You can kind of think of Planck's constant as the universe's exchange rate between energy and frequency.
Exchange rate, I like that.
Yeah, it dictates that energy isn't absorbed in this, smooth, continuous flow. It's absorbed in specific quantized packets. So what this entire equation is essentially arguing is that there is a direct, undeniable mathematical relationship between the exact amount of energy a molecule takes in and the specific frequency at which it vibrates.
Okay, I think I'm following. So energy goes in, and the vibration changes based on a precise, rigid mathematical rule. The physical world is just this giant web of energy exchanges. That makes sense. And I guess that brings us to the concept of resonance, which seems to be the absolute linchpin of this whole holistic practice.
It's the core of it all, really.
So to try and visualize this resonance thing, is it kind of like pushing someone on a playground swing at the exact right millisecond to make them go higher?
Yes, that is the perfect analogy. Pushing a swing is the classic demonstration of wave resonance. If you push the swing at the wrong time, like, say, while it's still coming backward toward you, you fight its natural momentum.
You just kill the energy.
Right, the swing slows down. That's destructive interference.
Mm-hmm.
But if you match the natural frequency of the swing, pushing just as it reaches the peak of its backward arc and starts moving forward, you amplify the energy.
The swing goes higher and higher.
Exactly. and with very little effort from you. That is resonance. It occurs when one object vibrates at a frequency that matches the natural frequency of another object, and that leads to a massive amplification of that vibrational effect.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting and where I need to play devil's advocate for a minute.
Go for it.
Because, okay, we understand molecules and we understand how resonance amplifies energy. That's all physics. But we have to bridge a massive conceptual gap here.
A very big gap.
Right. The texts jump from verifiable quantum mechanics to the idea that a rock can cure my anxiety. How does the vibration of a literal crystal actually interact with the complex vibration of a human being?
Well, the texts explain this by introducing the concept of the human biofield, which is sometimes referred to as an aura.
Okay, an aura.
Right. And the claim is that human beings vibrate at their own unique composite frequencies. But unlike a rock, our frequencies are highly variable. They're constantly fluctuating.
Fluctuating based on what, exactly?
Based on our physical health, our environment, and crucially, our emotional state.
Interesting. Because the sources suggest that higher frequencies are generally associated with positive emotions, robust health, a sense of calm.
Right.
And conversely, lower frequencies correlate with negative emotions, stress, or illness. So if you're incredibly stressed out about a work deadline or fighting off a bad cold, your biofield essentially becomes unstable.
You're vibrating erratically.
Yeah, you're biologically and energetically disharmonious.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now contrast that chaotic human state with the physical structure of a crystal. Crystals are defined in geology by their highly structured, rigid arrangements of atoms.
Like perfect little grids.
Yeah, they form these perfect, repeating geometric lattices. And because their internal molecular structure is so perfectly ordered, the texts argue that the frequencies they emit are incredibly stable and coherent.
So they don't change.
No. A piece of quartz doesn't have a bad day at work. It doesn't get anxious about paying taxes. It just emits a constant, mathematically steady vibration.
Wow. Okay. The holistic theory, then, is that you can use the highly stable frequency of the crystal to influence the chaotic frequency of the human.
That's the idea.
But I have to push back on the actual mechanics of this. How does the energy transfer? I mean, if I'm a chaotic mess of low frequencies because I miss my train, and I am holding a perfectly stable crystal in my palm, how do those two isolated systems actually talk to each other?
Well, the sources point to two main conductive pathways. First, the human body's high water content. And second, its piezoelectric properties.
Piezoelectric.
Yeah, the human body is highly conductive. Our bones, our connective tissues, even our DNA exhibit piezoelectric properties, which means they can generate an electrical charge in response to applied mechanical stress.
Okay, wait. I know quartz is piezoelectric. Like, that is literally how quartz watches keep time.
Exactly.
Right. A tiny battery applies a charge, the quartz vibrates at a precise frequency, and the watch ticks. But if a crystal is just resting quietly on my chest during a meditation session, where is the mechanical stress coming from to activate this exchange? Like, it isn't being struck with a hammer.
It doesn't need to be a hammer strike.
Mm-hmm.
The texts suggest the mechanical stress comes from subtle biological rhythms.
Oh, like what?
The physical rising and falling of your chest as you breathe against the stone, your pulse. The subtle heat transfer from your skin to the crystal. These microscopic mechanical and thermal shifts are enough, according to the sources, to facilitate an energetic exchange.
Between the conductive human body and the stone.
Right. It's a micro-application of that resonance principle we talked about.
So the crystal is basically acting like an atomic metronome.
A metronome, yes.
If my biological orchestra is playing chaotically out of tune, the crystal metronome doesn't change its tempo to match me. It just ticks away perfectly. Mm-hmm. And eventually, my chaotic biofield, quote unquote, hears the beat through these conductive pathways and adjusts its own rhythm to match that steady frequency.
That metronome analogy captures the exact mechanism the practitioners are aiming for. The crystal provides an unwavering physical frequency that helps realign the disrupted energies of the biofield.
It sets the pace.
Yeah, and this realignment is what practitioners believe helps alleviate physical discomfort and mental fog.
Now, I feel like we need to pause here for a really crucial point of context, just to remain completely impartial about what we're analyzing.
Definitely.
Because we are looking at how the source texts describe these mechanisms. But the scientific community heavily debates the empirical evidence for physical healing via crystals. They often point to the placebo effect.
Right, very often.
But to dismiss it entirely kind of misses a huge piece of the puzzle that these sources highlight. Countless individuals report massive, undeniable personal benefits.
And, the discussion around the placebo effect is fascinating in itself because a placebo isn't just quote-unquote nothing.
It's a real response.
It is a real psychological and physiological response.
Yeah.
People report tangible stress reduction. If you believe that atomic metronome is helping you, and you take 10 minutes out of your chaotic day to sit quietly with it, focusing on your breathing and the physical weight of the stone on your chest, your heart rate will slow down.
Your cortisol levels will drop. And that is a very real biological benefit. You are using a physical object to anchor your intention and clear mental clutter. So if the body is an orchestra, it obviously has different sections. Which brings us to where we actually place these metronomes. The sources spent a significant amount of time mapping out how specific crystals target specific energy centers.
Oh, definitely. And to understand this mapping, we have to look at how these practices define the body's energy geography. The text outline 3 overlapping systems.
Okay, what are they?
First, bioenergetics, which is the study of how energy flows through living systems. Second, meridians, which is a concept from traditional Chinese medicine describing specific pathways for energy, or qi, to flow.
Right, qi.
And finally, chakras, which are described as vital energy centers located along the spine from the base all the way to the top of the head.
The sources map this out extensively, but instead of just reading down the list from head to toe like a dry anatomy textbook, let's look at the underlying logic of how they assign a specific rock to a specific problem, because it really isn't random.
Not at all.
There's a distinct spectrum going from dense, grounding energy all the way to light, expansive energy.
The logic is deeply tied to color theory, mineral density, and psychological association. So let's look at the concept of grounding. If someone is feeling scattered, anxious, or unmoored, the texts suggest targeting the root chakra at the base of the spine.
Right.
And the stones assigned here are visually dark, heavy, and dense. Things like red jasper or obsidian, which is a dark volcanic glass.
Which makes sense because holding a heavy piece of black volcanic glass physically feels anchoring. It makes psychological sense that it represents stability and protection.
Exactly.
But then as you move up the body's energy centers toward more complex emotional states, the stones change completely. Like if you're feeling creatively blocked before a big presentation, the texts don't suggest a heavy black stone. They point to the sacral chakra associated with passion and creativity, and they recommend carnelian or orange calcite.
And notice the shift there. It's moving to vibrant, energetic colors, oranges, and fiery tones. And the same applies to the solar plexus chakra, which is the center for confidence and personal power. The texts pair it with the trine and tiger's eye.
Oh, which are those bright golds and yellows?
Right, mirroring the energy of the sun. The mapping uses the visual and tactile properties of the stone to reinforce the specific emotional intention.
That's so cool. And as we move even higher to the throat chakra for communication, we see stones like blue lace agate and aquamarine.
The blue tones.
Yeah, the visual association with clear water or an open sky reflects that goal of clear, unobstructed expression. But the apex of this spectrum really fascinated me.
The crown chakra.
Yes, when the texts discuss the crown chakra at the top of the head, which is the center for higher consciousness and spiritual growth, the stones become almost entirely transparent.
It's like the physical density seems to just give way to light transmission. The sources point to selenite and clear quartz for this higher level spiritual connection.
Clear quartz is mentioned constantly.
Heavily emphasized across all the texts. It's consistently referred to as a master healer. Because of its clear neutral structure, practitioners believe it can amplify energy and be programmed for almost any intention.
Unlike obsidian, which is very specific.
Right, a very narrow use case.
And the sources also note that you don't even have to place these on your body. There are environmental applications too. Like black tourmaline, for example, is thought to provide a stabilizing shield against electromagnetic fields or EMFs.
Environmental protection.
Yep. The texts suggest placing a piece next to your Wi-Fi router or computer monitor to sort of absorb environmental chaotic frequencies before they interact with your biofield.
So we're seeing a very comprehensive, structured system for attempting to manage invisible forces. But the sources reveal something else. A method to significantly amplify this entire process by introducing a completely different medium of vibration into the room.
Sound.
Sound, yes.
This is where the sensory experience really deepens. We have our physical crystalline metronomes placed by the various sections of the orchestra, but to make sure the orchestra really hears the rhythm, practitioners bathe the room in specific sound waves.
The solfeggio frequencies.
Yes, the texts introduce solfeggio frequencies.
And these are described in the sources as a set of ancient musical tones that have profound specific healing properties. Practitioners combine these auditory waves with the tactile presence of the crystals to create this immersive, multisensory resonant environment.
Now, why specific numbers? Because the texts claim a frequency of 528 hertz is the quote-unquote love frequency, which is intensely associated with transformation, DNA repair, and emotional healing. Is 528 just an arbitrary number someone picked, or is there a reason for it?
Well, according to the text, these numbers aren't arbitrary at all. They claim these specific frequencies are derived from ancient musical scales and correspond to fundamental mathematical patterns found in nature and geometry.
Oh, interesting.
The argument is that 528 hertz creates a mathematically perfect acoustic resonance that interacts directly with the physical geometry of the body's cells and the crystal's lattice.
Wow. And the texts suggest pairing that specific 528 hertz tone with green aventurine, which is a stone mapped to the heart chakra. Now, initially I thought of this like pairing a specific fine wine with the perfect cheese-like. They both just taste good together.
A nice pairing.
Yeah, but looking at the physics we discussed, it isn't a culinary pairing, it's wave interference.
Oh, expand on that. How are you visualizing the interference?
Well, think of dropping 2 pebbles into a still pond. If you drop them randomly, the ripples crash into each other and create a messy, chaotic surface.
Right, destructive interference.
Exactly. But if you drop them at the exact right distance and time, the ripples sync up. The crest of one wave perfectly meets the crest of the other, and they combine to create a single massive wave. Constructive interference.
That's a great visual.
Thanks. So, by holding a heart chakra stone, emitting its stable frequency, and simultaneously playing a 528 hertz sound wave aimed at the exact same emotional resonance, the texts are describing constructive wave interference to supercharge the intention.
That is a much more accurate mechanical analogy. You were using the sound wave to physically amplify the crystal's energetic output. Another example from the text pairs the 963 hertz frequency, which is linked to spiritual awakening, with a crown chakra stone like clear quartz or selenite.
The transparent ones.
Right. Holding that clear stone while a high-pitched, mathematically resonant sound wave physically vibrates your eardrums and your skin. It creates a deeply immersive environment.
It kind of takes the pressure off the crystal to do all the work. If your chaotic biofield is the out-of-tune orchestra and the crystal is the metronome, the solfeggio frequency acts as the master conductor stepping onto the podium, bringing the entire room, the air, the stone, the body, into one unified harmonious vibration.
And according to the sources, combining these modalities forces the mind to focus. It creates pathways for deeper emotional release and makes the intentionality of the practice just undeniable. You're basically surrounding your sensory inputs with meticulously structured stability.
We have covered an incredible amount of ground today. Let's recap the through line of what we've unpacked from these sources.
Let's do it.
We started with the hard chemistry of molecular vibrations, looking at how Planck's constant and the equation delta E equals h nu dictate that every single object absorbs energy and vibrates at a specific mathematical frequency.
Right. And from there, we explored the holistic claim that the chaotic, emotion-driven frequencies of the human biofield can become disharmonious. We look at how the perfectly ordered geometric atomic structure of crystals offers a stable counterpoint.
Yeah, and we dug into the proposed transfer mechanism, how the subtle mechanical stress of breathing and body heat interacts with the piezoelectric properties of the stones to transfer that stability.
The atomic metronome.
Exactly. Then we walked through the conceptual mapping of the chakras, seeing how dense, dark stones are used for grounding, while clear stones are used for higher consciousness.
And finally, we looked at constructive wave interference. How practitioners combine the physical touch of the stones with the auditory resonance of mathematically specific solfeggio sound waves, like 528 hertz, to amplify the entire energetic system.
Ultimately, whether you view the mechanics of crystal healing as quantum wave interference, genuinely realigning your biofield, or as a highly structured, remarkably effective psychological placebo, the texts highlight something undeniable.
Which is?
The sheer power of setting an intention. I mean, taking deliberate time out of a chaotic day to hold a physical object, focus on your breathing, and actively decide to regulate your emotional state has profound physiological benefits.
It really does. The physical tool anchors the mental state. It gives the mind a focal point to stop spinning and return to the present moment. And that reduction in biological stress is a very real, measurable form of healing.
Which brings us right back to that inanimate rock we mentioned at the very start of this deep dive. It isn't dead weight at all. It is a buzzing, highly ordered system of molecular energy.
Never just a rock.
Never just a rock. And digging into all of this leaves you with something fascinating to ponder as you go about the rest of your day. If absolutely everything in the universe, down to the molecular level of our own bodies and our passing emotions, is fundamentally just vibrating energy, what other seemingly inanimate objects in your daily life might be quietly influencing your frequency right now without you even realizing it?